So what is rock and roll history? It's not just the music we hear in the gym at the Maryland every now and then when Coach Davis is trying to get everybody turned up and lifting heavy. It's not just the music you have when your grandparents are trying to listen to it and relive their days when they had that 67 Mustang Fastback that you never get to saw and you frankly have no idea if it even exists, or they're just trying to make things up and go with it. So with that being said, rock and roll history is one of the most biggest topics you could talk about, and frankly 3 to 5 minutes is not even enough to scratch the surface of what this even is. In my learnings of rock and roll history, it can be traced all the way back to bluegrass songs with the banjo that you hear in those funny videos with the Appalachians, the guys that can't talk and have 2 front teeth and drink enough moonshine to run a car on. It can be traced back even further than that, but we won't go much farther than that because we frankly have no idea what they're even saying. So, with that being said, we're just going to trace it back to Motown. Motown is one of the most influential things to ever happen, and it happened during the Civil Rights era in the 60s, where influential people like MLK were around doing peaceful things, trying to get their point across. Motown produced those rhythms that we hear often in songs like AC/DC that they produce, or Metallica, with those underlying rhythms that we don't even know are there until we even pull them up and look at them and their sound waves to see how similar they are. This is something that's very weird. We don't see it a lot in a ton of other music other than rap when we look at 90s rap compared to now. But rock music, we'll stick to that topic, is probably the biggest and most confusing thing of all time. So, rock music and history, with Motown already being mentioned, some people in Motown that you might have heard also from your grandparents, who I mentioned earlier, are probably people like the Temptations, who were the group of 3 that sang some of the most influential songs of the time. Or you might have heard Marvin Gaye, everyone knows him, famous singer, great voice. Those people produced the new type of rock and roll music that we know now, which is now nu metal, which you might know because you might hear Linkin Park when you lift, or even grunge music when you hear Sound of Seattle when it comes to Alice in Chains, Stone Temple Pilots, stuff like that. Stuff we hear on a daily basis. So, rock music being mentioned, being one of the most influential things of its time, now is currently being used as a platform to show differences in things such as political differences, or even just talking about and bashing on people you don't really like, which we often hear when we bring up Alice in Chains bashing on Metallica, which was their favorite pastime to do at the point in the 80s. So rock music now, although is probably one of the most confusing musics of all time, is still one of the most fun to listen to, and you get those cool rhythms, and sometimes it gets you amped up before you go play in your sporting events. Back to the history though. History-wise,